Hi, my name is Sophie Ladendorf, and I am a third-year interior architecture student at the University of Kansas. This summer, I had the incredible opportunity to travel abroad to Southern Europe, specifically Spain and Portugal. My group traveled to Barcelona, Porto, Lisbon, Sintra, Seville, Cordoba, Granada, Toledo, and Madrid. As shown on these maps, I have everything mapped out of where we traveled. We started in Barcelona, made our way to Porto, Portugal, and wrapped around that coast, and then made our way back into Spain. My travels definitely ignited my passion for understanding how the spaces that we inhabit interact with the world outside. As us humans definitely spend about 90% of our time indoors, it's definitely interesting to study how the exterior environment directly interacts with the interior environment, which is where I discovered my research question and where I was going to learn the most. So my research question is, how does the interior environment directly interact with the exterior environment? This question touches on transition spaces and how this interaction between the exterior and interior affect its users and how people may react to these things and interact. These transition spaces are things such as courtyards, terraces, and balconies, etc., and they play a vital role in enhancing the relationship between the interior and the exterior. You may be wondering why I chose this question, and that is because as an interior architecture major, I believe that we and my peers often overlook the exterior environment and only focus on the interior. I believe that the exterior does play a large role on how users interact with the space, which is something I definitely noticed while I was traveling. Now more than ever, I want to include the exterior into my interior design of my projects and have these environments overlap and interact. As an aspiring interior architect, I want to explore how these interactions not only influence, but also impact the way we feel and behave in these environments. First, we traveled to Barcelona, Spain. Immediately, I noticed how differently this city was laid out and how the exterior of their designs was brought into their interiors. In Barcelona, their architecture is definitely known for their courtyards, particularly in residential buildings. One of these courtyards that definitely stood out to me was Antonio Gaudi's Casa Mia. Here are some images on the page that are showing this interior courtyard in this apartment building. As shown, this courtyard holds a lot of significance and it is beautiful. This was, again, center of the apartment, and it was people were exiting out of this area, and these were like residence users and all of that. And these courtyards were just not functional spaces. They were also at the time serving as social hubs. As you can see, while we are obviously touring, there are many people here. This is gathering, socializing. It just really bonds the community. And obviously there are large windows that are opening up to the inside of the courtyard. This draws natural light and openness into the interiors, making it feel as if the outdoors is part of the home that they are in. And I believe that this was one of the most interesting interactions between the interior and exterior environments on our whole entire trip. It was especially interesting as this was a very common design decision at this time. There were quite a few courtyards no matter anywhere you went while we were abroad. I thought I found a courtyard nearly everywhere, but this one really stood out to me with its beauty. Next, we traveled to Porto, Portugal. In Porto, I noticed that nearly every building had balconies or terraces. Although this is not as obvious or jarring as courtyards that were in Barcelona, I still find it very intriguing and inspiring that nearly every single building had balconies. On this page, there are 4 images of different buildings in Porto, Portugal, and as you can see, every single one of these residential buildings has a balcony or a terrace. These balconies create almost a transitional space where the residents can obviously step outside and engage with their surroundings while still being in their home and not having to go fully outside and exit their apartment or their home or any of that. This also does incorporate a lot of natural light into their home, and then the movement from the indoor to the outdoor feels almost effortless. So this would encourage the community style and just the cultural essence of Porto. So I think that this is another reason that they may incorporate these as as well as the natural light and just the interaction between the interior and exterior environment. After Porto, we traveled to Lisbon, Portugal. This is very similar. They had a lot of the same styles, in my opinion. The presence of balconies and terraces was also very prevalent. Many homes feature expansive terraces that overlook the cityscape. So in the two on the left, you can see all of those balconies, terraces, and even just large windows that let in a lot of natural light. This is definitely a transition space that invites the street life into the home. And when you step on to the terrace, you're kind of surrounded by the sounds and sights of the city, but you still are maintaining a sense of privacy as your home is directly behind you. This connection encourages a lifestyle that embraces, obviously, the outdoors, but also the indoors in that transitional moment through those. And on the right, this was another place that we visited in Lisbon, and I think this also shows great transition from the exterior courtyard or plaza into the interior space in here. So I wanted to include that as well. Next, we went to a short day trip in Sintra. We arrived at the Sintra National Palace, and there is many courtyards in this palace, as well as gardens. I wanted to include the two gardens, which are pictured on the right. And this interior feature has a lot of grand rooms that flow into one another, and then there's glimpses of the garden through the large windows. And then as well as the image on the left, again, interior courtyard. This is not only an architectural highlight, but also a transition area where the light, air, and sound flows. Portugal is also known for their tile work, so there was a lot of tile around. Not that this is really, honestly, integrating anything between interior and exterior environments, but I did just want to include that because I do think it is a beautiful feature of Portugal that they do have their tiles primarily outside, but it can be considered interior in a way when they are in the courtyards. So I just wanted to include that courtyard on the left that was in the middle, and then also the views of the gardens on the right. As we arrived back in Spain, we stopped in Seville. In Seville, there were several plazas, and then here are some images of those plazas. On the left and on the right, I have this large structure that was kind of just a place of community and where everyone met up. And I thought this was really neat. They're public squares, they're very lively, and when you walk through Seville, the transition from the plaza to the interior of a local shop or a restaurant or a bar or anything is beautiful. And the architecture often frames these plazas and it guides your movement through them. It's a very inviting atmosphere. And these plazas are very vibrant and beautiful. And the one in the middle, there's obviously a central water feature, which, again, is just like enhancing the community. Obviously, these plazas are a little bit similar to courtyards in a way, but these definitely also intrigued me and inspired me in a similar way to as the courtyards did. After Seville, we traveled to Granada. In Granada, the concept of gardens and patios is definitely a big one there. The Alhambra has its breathtaking gardens, which is nearly everything that is on this screen. And it does show how these transition spaces can enhance the experience of your interior experience as well as your exterior experience. So in all of these images, you can see the different gardens and how the materials shift from interior to exterior, but you're almost inside and outside at the same time is how I felt when I was here. Honestly, that's how good the transition was in these spaces. And this like beauty of nature I thought was really interesting at the Alhambra and in Granada in general. I just think they have a lot of gardens and greenery, and I thought it really invited people in. And the final destination that I will touch on for this research question is Madrid, Spain. Madrid definitely embraces the concept of transition spaces from inside to outside. As you can see in the image on the left, this shows on the right, you can see the light coming in. This obviously looks like an interior space, but we were actually outside. But it is just a covering over us. So that just kind of shows that like you can feel like you're inside, but you are still outside. And then on the right, this is at the Palace, and this is an open air plaza or a transition space. This allows us to just look at the palace, look off into the distance. It just reinforces the idea that the indoor environment can also interact with the exterior environment. And then my key takeaways from this trip was that I definitely, again, wanted to include more exterior environment into my designs and my projects. And I think that courtyards, terraces, balconies, plazas, anything plays a crucial role in creating those connections between the two environments. And these also enhance the overall experience and how the users interact with the space. I also definitely think that I learned about different architectural styles and the thoughtful use of space across the cities. I definitely observed the different cultures and how the indoor-outdoor connection is different in every place, but it's all very inspiring and intriguing and something I definitely want to incorporate. And then lastly, I definitely think, aside from the academic aspect, this trip has definitely heightened my personal perspective on travel, architecture, and culture in general. I had never been to Europe, and this was definitely an enlightening experience, and I'm really glad I got to engage with these environments and understand all the dynamics of them, and if I could go back, I would. Thank you.